My guest today is Lesley McNamara from Calgary, Alberta. Lesley is a mom and she had her own accounting practice along with a partner as a CPA. She recently sold it, but she is still doing consulting for CPAs and bookkeepers. Lesley is also an ordained minister through the Centers of Spiritual Living, and she currently attends the Calgary Center for Spiritual Living, which welcomes all faiths. So that's so amazing about the center. Lesley loves to paint, she told me, and she would like to pursue doing some portrait painting of animals and babies. So I think that sounds like that would be super fun.
Yeah.
So welcome, Lesley. Yeah, I'm
Thank
just
you so much, Shelley. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just,
Really.
yeah,
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on today and just sharing a little bit about your life and your spiritual journey, which we've talked previous, and you've had some adventures, I tell you, to say the least.
Yeah.
You've been through some difficult times, and you know,
Hmm.
I believe that your story is really going to help the listeners, right? Because we all go through difficult things, and you also had a couple of really profound experiences that were such a shift in for you. So
Hmm.
that is another thing I'm excited for you to share about, right? Because sometimes those things you don't expect in life, and then this shift comes. So I think your story is beautiful, and you just like what came to me after we talked about your story was beauty for ashes. Like sometimes out of those ashes come such beautiful things. So I'm really excited for you to share with everyone to hear your story. So we'll get started. And I know that you grew up in a home where your parents really didn't even talk about God or spirituality or
Yep.
anything. So that's kind of, different than some who were brought up in certain religion or anything. So let's get started there. You can start talking about your journey there.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast, Shelley. This is a great opportunity, and I'm excited for what you're creating for yourself. I love it. We've had a few conversations and spent some time together on spirituality and creating our futures as if they're already existing. And here you are on your next version of the greatest self of Shelley Baker. So
Oh, thank
loving
you.
it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And that's, it's certainly been a drive of mine over the last, oh, for sure, 10 or 15 years. But way back when, yeah, I grew up in an affluent neighborhood in West Vancouver, and on the beachfront. We lived on the waterfront, so of course I have a huge affinity for the ocean and all things ocean. We spent a lot of time on the water and swimming, and then my dad, he was an engineer, but he decided that he wanted to bring sailing. They were British. They immigrated over in the late 50s, and then I was born. After that, they came with two boys, and then I was born, and then my youngest brother, although we weren't really expected at all. My mom said the birth control over in the in Canada was terrible. So particularly my little brother was like, "Oh my God, you're a mistake." So he knew that, and we all did. But yeah, we were very close in age, so he was actually my champion. Him and I grew up together, and I really relied on him a lot. So, anyways, yeah, I just spent a lot of time on the beach and loved that, and started, yeah, exploring. I don't know. I don't know. It changes every time, of course, when we tell our own personal stories, but there was a lot of drinking in my family, yeah, lots of drinking. And I had these two older brothers, and they did get into a little bit of trouble doing different things. They were just experimenting, and my parents had this philosophy that they were raising us on. Was It was called Summerhill, and from England, and it was just where you let your children experience the consequences of their actions, which is actually very much in alignment with the teaching of science of mind, Centers for Spiritual Living. They teach us that we are responsible for our own actions. We create the world that we're in. And so that was an interesting idea. And even here were my parents doing that. But I felt like super unregulated as a kid. I mean, they did have sort of some limits, but not a lot. And so, everybody sort of got away with whatever they got away with. And so I started experimenting and drinking when I was 14, 15 years old. And yeah,
That
and
is
ended up,
very young, right? That is a
yeah,
very young age for that. Yeah.
yeah, it was. But, I had two older examples, right? And so uh, I actually went to bars at that age, got into bars. I had developed boobs early. So,
So you looked older.
yeah, exactly. And, but anyways, I ended up, I had a brief affair with a brief boyfriend and ended up getting pregnant and did not keep the child. I was 15, but I was smoking and drinking and doing marijuana and stuff like that, some drugs, and that event really spiraled me down because I, was so ashamed, and I had to change. I did change high schools because that was grade 10, so moved to a different high school, grade for 11, and yeah, and then I just spiraled down. I was hardly at school. Um, and I met a couple of friends, and we just liked to party, and it was really just about the partying on the weekends, and I just was spiraling down in that I had no direction. I had no guidance from my parents. My eldest brother had gotten married at 16 or 17 because his wife, his girlfriend was pregnant. And so, in my mind, it was kind of like an afterthought later on. It was kind of like, well, if that happened with your firstborn, why wouldn't you like take precautions for all the kids in the family? But, they didn't. And then in hindsight as well, it's like, well, would that have stopped me? Not likely. So you can't really control people,
Yeah.
but you can give them education, which might have been helpful,
Yeah.
right? So.
How were your parents during that time? Were they like, did they just want you to have the abortion? How were they support like what was their
Actually,
reaction?
my mom, I just told her, she just went to bed. She didn't really talk about it at all when I told her. And then my dad, I sat up waiting for him to come home because he was running a sailing school at that point. He stopped being an engineer and he was doing sailing. He
Okay.
was running a sailing school in Vancouver. And so he would come home after the lectures. And so he didn't get home till about 10:30 at night. And I was sitting in the dark in the living room smoking a cigarette. And he's like, "What are you doing smoking?" And I said, "Well, I have news for you. Like, I'm pregnant and I'm not keeping the baby." And he's like, he was disappointed, but we never really, they were British and we never really talked about emotions, like, or spirituality or God or anything like that. And so he just said, "Well, I'm disappointed. I wish you'd keep the baby." And I was like, that's like so ludicrous in my mind. It was just crazy. But
Yeah.
I thought I may as well smoke because, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because I was hiding it from them.
Yeah.
But, I wasn't a good kid. I mean, in grade 7, I was stealing cigarettes from the grocery store. So, we had a lot of, yeah. So,
Yeah.
anyways, but that event was a real big trigger for me because then I didn't like myself. I thought I was very despicable, and there was a lot of shame for me in that event. And a lot of there was a little gang that we hung out with, and everybody in the gang found out. And so it was, yeah, I was not happy. There was probably about 20 kids in this like local little hoodlum gang that we hung out with, teenagers, and just causing, you know littering badly and a little bit of bad pranks and stuff. But
That's a very
anyways, moving on, I dropped out of high school in grade 11. I didn't make it all the way through that new high school and had to go and talk to all my teachers. And so this is like the accountability part. I'd never been really accountable for anything, but I just had to go, well, I don't feel like it. I don't want to go. And somewhere, well, you're such a good student and everything. But anyways, I had met a guy, and I was still living at home, and for another 2 years. And um, I don't know. Anyways, I moved in with him. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that just started. And then, we just were drinking and partying and just living for the party. And I tried, I was working a little bit. I was working at my dad's sailing school, teaching sailing. I was a sailing instructor for a year at that. Well, I got the training and became a sailing instructor. And we did a lot of sailing, and so that was cool. And then just moving on. And then my dad, he died unexpectedly, like very unexpectedly. He was 56, and
Oh, wow.
he just had an aneurysm and bled to death. And so it was I was 19 when he passed. And so that was really, it was 2 weeks before he died, though. He did say on the telephone, we were talking, and then we was going to hang up, and he said, "I love you, Lesley." So, they never talked about that stuff. And so that was good. And so moving along, I moved out from that guy, and then I got a job working at the auto club, BCAA, and started dating a bunch of the truck drivers. Tow truck drivers. There was a nice pool of single guys there. So anyways, I met one and married him, and then I wanted to. I started into this is where I started into the spiritualities part of my journey, because now I'm married. I need to get my life together. And when you're drinking and using drugs, and you can't do that,
Right.
and also distributing those said drugs. So my brother invited to me to a self-help. It was actually Jim Rohn. He was in Vancouver giving a speaking engagement, and it was simple, it was clear. He had a little tiny book, Seasons of Life, and he just used the seasons of, what you sow is what you reap. And it just sounded so. I think I was just ready. I was ready for the message. Before that, I wasn't ready for the message.
Was when like you started going there, but was there that experience before that that you shared about in the tent?
That's coming up.
Oh, that's after. Okay, I
That
was
was
gonna say
just
that.
before that.
Okay.
That was sort of the trigger event. I went to that in November, and then, and it just began. It was the triggering event for me of, that there might be something better. And, there was a couple of drinking situations that had, led me to realize that I didn't want to do that anymore. And so that's when we went camping on the Easter long weekend, and it was raining the whole Vancouver. Rain, of course, rain the whole weekend. We were tarp masters, so we had a great way of putting up all the tarps so that it was, pretty dry. And me and one of the guys, we just fed everybody drinks, but mostly fed ourselves, and we drank that campsite dry. There was nothing left. And at that time, I was on Weight Watchers, and I only wanted to drink on Weight Watchers. At that time, you could have 2 4-ounce glasses of wine or 1 10 ounces glass of beer
Okay.
per week. And so, yeah, you could have, yeah, that was it per week.
Yeah.
So, I saved up. So, and 10 ounces, like that's not even a full bottle of a 12-ounce bottle of beer at that time, right? Like, who's going to not drink the 2 ounces left over? Come on.
Yeah.
They obviously don't know drinkers at Weight Watchers.
Right.
So I drank the 2 glasses of wine, drank the bottle of beer, and then all the liquor that we were making, hot rums and all this stuff. And I just got plastered, like totally out of it,
Yeah.
and passed out, blacked out as usual. That was my usual pattern, and went into ended up waking up in the morning. Oh, I don't even know how I got in the tent. Oh my God, I'm lying there, I'm soaking wet because it's raining. And I just felt totally demoralized. And I said to myself, I've got my eyes closed, and I just said to myself, there's got to be a better way. And in that moment, there was just this huge wash of emotion, of sparkled, I don't know, energy, like just this static electricity that was not uncomfortable. It was warming and powerful, and it was a presence. And I was just like, wow, that was amazing. And it was kind of like, maybe there is a better way. got up, packed up, and I contacted my brother who was already 3 years sober in AA. And I said, I'd like to go to a 12-step meeting with you. And so I went, and that was the beginning of my spirit. That was the start of my spirituality because they want you to believe, they not want, they suggest that you believe in a power greater than yourself. And so I went on this spiritual journey.
And Lesley, when that happened in the tent, did you recognize it as something spiritual, or did you just not know what that was? Like, I know you looking
I
back.
kind of did. I kind of did because I'd already been kind of exploring spirituality at that point, and I was reading Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich,
Right,
and I'd been having discussions with my brother about spirituality because he knew that that was the only thing that was a solution to
right.
for him, that was the solution to, yeah, he was super bad alcoholic. He was like really bad.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was really bad too, but he was way worse. And
yeah. And you saw that
so,
change in his life, hey?
yeah, and I'd seen the changes that he's experienced as a result of it. And then that was on the Monday. And then, like on the Wednesday, like 2 days later, I opened my pack of cigarettes and I always had a spare pack, like never just one left. And this time I had one left and no spare pack. And I
Right.
was like, oh my God. And then I was like, oh, I should have had another pack somewhere, but I don't. And then all of a sudden, this voice inside of my head said, like a distinct voice in my head said, that's the last cigarette you will ever smoke.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, right. I'd smoked for 10 years at that point, and I had never tried to quit. I was a consummate smoker. Even when I was super sick, like dying from colds or whatever, I would smoke
Yeah,
away. I never tried. I was like, laughed at people that tried to quit. I was like, why bother? Because I knew I was an addict. I was like, oh no, this is my thing.
yeah.
This is
So
my thing.
that,
And so I smoked that cigarette and I've never had one since. It
wow.
was amazing. 24 years old, and that was that. And then no drinking. And then about 2 weeks later, I was smoking some pot with a friend, and I just had a real deep realization. Oh, this has got to go too, because I wanted to smoke a cigarette then, and I knew that I didn't smoke anymore. so so
Wow.
I stopped doing all that stuff and began my journey.
Yeah, that's amazing because
I was married, and yeah,
lots of
that
people
was amazing.
stop, like that sudden. So it was almost like something inside of you shifted too, right? Like it's
Oh
almost like a
yes,
bit of a,
yeah.
you'd say like a miracle, right? Something
Oh
came
yeah,
through you,
that
right?
yes, definitely. It was like
There's,
divine intervention.
yeah,
There was
divine.
no question in my mind that I
Yeah,
had experienced divine intervention.
very.
Absolutely. And so it was clear that there was something happening. Although I didn't feel worthy of it, but I mean, I did. So it was amazing, amazing experiences, and so it just helped me move forward that there was a higher power and there was something in the universe that was on my side. I got pregnant with my first kid after that, shortly after that. I mean, that was April. And then in July, I got pregnant, and then I had my son just April the following year. So I'm always going to be 1 year older than him in sobriety. so, uh, so anyways, that yeah, and then um, I know, and then our relationship was pretty sketchy because my husband was a cocaine addict, and he wasn't uh, wasn't willing to give that up, and it was tough. And I had this baby, and he went to treatment, and um, you know, I don't know. It was really tough. It was really tough those first couple of years, and I wasn't good. I wasn't a good person. It takes a long time to get to begin to make these changes. It's not an instant, like, even though I'd had, God speak to me or somebody spoke to me,
Yeah,
it's like that wasn't an everyday occurrence. Um, and I got pregnant with my second child, and then I decided that that was it. He was, that we were not going to stay together. So we separated, sold the house. Um, I moved into a basement suite and ended up having this little girl. And to honestly, she was born in October, and we'd separated back in April, May. And I was living in a basement suite and no car. And I was just terrified of what was this going to happen to me, right? My girlfriend, a friend of mine, came for the delivery to be with me during the delivery of baby. It was a cesarean, and then afterwards, I'm in the room, and I was just distraught. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. I was trying to reconcile with my husband. I was like, "Oh, I made a big mistake," and he wasn't buying it, and I was just so desperate. And I'm lying in the room, and then the nurse said, "Do you want to nurse your baby?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to see my baby," and I'm nursing it. And as I'm nursing it, little Jessie, she latched on, and oh my gosh, just this huge wave again came over my whole body, my whole being. And there was just such comfort, this power, this presence comforted me. And I knew in that instant that
Yeah.
everything was going to work out. It was okay because this was a gift.
Yeah. So beautiful, hey? Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And she was just a great baby. She was the baby. She didn't get a tooth until after she was 1 year old. She didn't even start walking until she was like 13 months old. And she was just like the baby.
Yeah.
And she was just a delight. She was happy, and she was really great. And so and then I was a single mom for, 8 years.
Right. Which is also
So just
difficult.
working through all that stuff. Hmm?
I said, which is also difficult.
Oh, God, yeah. I was like on welfare for all those years. I didn't work because I didn't have any skills. Remember, high school dropout? I
Yeah.
mean, I had gone back and got my GED, which is like that, the grade 12 equivalent. And I was trying to do some bookkeeping, and and then once I had Jessie, and she, I was just she was going to start elementary, or no, kindergarten. I decided that it was time for me to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I certainly didn't want to be on welfare forever, but I
Yeah.
couldn't make more. I could only get a, $10 an hour job, and it wasn't going to make enough money to feed the kids and stuff. And so I decided, well, I went for aptitude test, and I scored very high in business or art. I'm very creative, but I didn't want to be a starving artist, so I decided to launch into becoming an accountant. At that time, it was a CGA designation,
Okay.
and so I started that journey. And Jesse entered into grade 2, and I started my schooling. And boy, it was challenging. But it was good because it gave me the very first class I went to. The instructor at UBC, very first class I went to, he put a big, huge word on the board. He just wrote it out, and he said, "Everybody here, this is your very first class of the first course of this 6-year program." And the word was persistence. He said, "You need persistence in order to finish this program."
Neat.
And that became one of my favorite words. And
Yeah.
because
And
I
you
needed it
you
to
did
be
persist.
11 years
Yeah,
to
you said it
complete
took you
to
a lot
complete the
longer.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure did, because life happened, right? I got
Yeah.
divorced from my first husband, then I met another guy, and got married to him, and then we had a lot of conflict because he had 2 kids, I had 2 kids, and you parent your own kids differently than you parent your blended family kids, and so he was pretty lax on his children and super harsh on my kids. And so that it was a rocky road. I mean, we had good times, don't get me wrong. We stayed together for a long time, and then we got divorced, and then a couple of years later we got back together. And during that time, the second time we got back together, that's when I found Centers for Spiritual Living in Kelowna. We'd moved to Kelowna. I'd still been in the 12-step program, and working my program, doing all that stuff. And then when I found the Centers for Spiritual Living through a woman who I introduced me to a coaching program for business owners because I now was working as a CPA and CGA, CPA, accounting business, and I was, I was just going through finishing off my school. Uh, I had to accelerate my program and to get it done in time. They give me an extra year to finish it because they had a 10-year limit on the program, but I got an exception.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic. So I was really, really, really being persistent and
Yes.
to
That's
get that.
awesome.
And I didn't really know about church. I tried a couple of churches over the years. It just didn't resonate with me. I was like, they want me to believe in Jesus. And honestly, I want to go to the top dog. I don't want a middleman. No, and I don't want more brothers. Like, he's not my brother. I have three. They're bad enough. So, being the only girl, I was like, it was tough.
Yeah.
Everybody like, oh, your brothers are so handsome, and everything like that. Oh, they're so great. And it's like, no, they're not. They're mean. My brothers were always teasing me. And, of course I love them, but,
Yeah.
it was really amazing.
Normal brothers, right? They like to
Yeah.
tease and give you a hard
Yeah,
time.
exactly. That's right. And, oh, you're the crybaby in the family. And I got that label. And, oh,
Yeah.
you're so emotional. Well, yes, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it didn't feel like it at the time. So, anyways, and I wanted to, the only reason I went to the center in Kelowna, the spiritual center, is because this woman that I had met, she was so funny. She was such a great person. She was full of life and vitality. She was just an incredible human being. And her and her husband would go on Sundays. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go on Sundays and we can go for lunch afterwards. And I could spend like 4 hours with her once a week. And I was so excited
Oh,
to be with her. And then I went to the church and I was like, I don't even know what they're saying. It didn't make any sense to me. It was kind of like this philosophy. And, for the first few Sundays, I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm just, kind of trying to hear what they're saying, but not really understanding it at all. It was nothing like I'd ever been to before.
yeah.
But I definitely I had been on a journey all those years of trying to figure out what my higher power was. I mean, I'd gone to a few churches that didn't work. I'd gone and I'd done a lot of stuff with in Vancouver. There was a lot of pagans there, and so we did goddess worship, and I read a lot on the goddess and gods and goddesses and the whole pagan religion. And so I was actively involved in the community, and we'd go out and do ceremonies out in the woods and on the beaches. And I went to camps where we would, experiment and with all different kinds of things. And so that was part of my journey. But when I was doing the goddess religion, it was like, well, okay, but it seems kind of exclusive. Like there's this whole idea of men as well.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, I understand the power of the goddesses, but I also understand that, that it's an inclusive world. We can't just exclude one gender or
Right.
one whatever.
Yeah.
And, so that sort of faded for me. And so I was ready for
Yeah.
the next, right? And that's where I came to the centers. And then, the minister, Dr. Ken at the time, he one Sunday was just sharing his frustration on trying to get his passport, because that was at the time when Canadians were required to get passports, because if you wanted to get in the States, you had to have a passport. Before, we could just cross anytime with a driver's license, right? Any ID, but no, not now. We needed passports.
Yes.
So he was sharing his frustration, and I was like, holy cow, I'd never heard like a spiritual leader or, a minister
Mhm.
ever share a frustration that they had. Because they were all the ones that I'd gone to, they were all perfect, and they all looked good and they all talked good. And they were just like, rah, 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 you should believe what I believe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
here he was sharing his frustration. And so I sat up in my chair and I was like, well, and he talked about how he resolved that internally for himself. And I was like, wow, this is good. So I started in January going to the center. And then in September, they started their classes. And honestly, it was life changing for me because I still had that place inside of me where I didn't really like myself. I didn't know. I still felt like I had this blackness inside of me because of all the traumas and all the things that had happened to me with, sleeping with a lot of men trying to find love.
Right. Yeah.
And, bad situations that had happened to me. Just yeah, just, you know, g getting somebody feeding me so much alcohol so I black out
Mm.
and then pass out, and then, they take turns having sex with me and things like that. And how do you, get up from that and have dignity? No, you don't. And I never knew how much trauma I had. I didn't understand it really because there was nobody to talk about it to, or, it was just like hide all those traumas that had been going on for me. And so when I heard all this stuff, and now I'm in my 40s, yeah, 40s, yeah, yeah, or late 40s,
Yeah. Yeah.
late 40s.
Yeah.
Anyways, doesn't matter. So I just started taking the courses, and I just got into it, and I loved it, and it was so mind-boggling because, first of all, I discovered one of the things that changed for me was like, Lesley, there's a divine spark inside of you, and you've never been hurt, you've never been wounded, and you've always been okay. And I never knew that. Like, I'd never discovered that about myself. I'd always thought that I carried all that stuff within me. And so that was so freeing. It changed my whole perspective on life. That people came to me because they were struggling, and they wanted the spark of joy that I had. And they wanted that, but they needed to find their own spark of joy, not take mine. And they never had taken mine. It was always there. It was always inside of me. They say, God, where am I going to hide this spark? I can't put it in the mountains. I can't put it in the ocean. I can't put this, spirit anywhere else except for inside of them. And that's the secret message.
Right. So I think, like, for the listeners, it's like that might be a kind of a strange concept you're saying about that never, nothing really happened. But it's like that soul inside of you is that perfect person and that light of,
Yeah.
right? That shining
Yeah.
light, because we all came from creator, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like, but we live in this body. And so there's that little bit of like that separation, right? But when we understand that we're perfectly whole inside that soul part of us, right?
Yeah. It's that higher self. It's that divine
Yeah,
light that is inside of us,
yeah,
that it's that creation point. It's our creation point, that universal space, the energy, the life force inside of us that has never been wounded, hurt.
exactly.
And
Such
and so,
a
okay, that's a great idea. Not like, what about all the things that happened to me?
right,
You know
right.
what I mean? It's like, it's not an instant cure. Like, learning spirituality is not an instant cure, but before I came to the center, I'd spent like 16 years in therapy trying to solve it. But all I was doing was digging up all the roots, digging up all the stuff. And
Yeah,
it wasn't really resolving itself because I was still looking back. I was looking backwards, backwards, backwards. I was so focused on my history because I had a little idea that, my past was haunting my present. Yes, it was.
yeah,
But the solution wasn't to go back and dig it all up and rehash it and relive it. The solution was to move forward and to start to vision what was really true about me, the truth of who I was, the truth that I wasn't hurt, I wasn't harmed. I was to begin to live a more spiritual life, in that I didn't need to go back and hash it. I just needed to go. If I went back to somewhere, I could revision it in a way that it was a healing experience for me, not from a place of pain, but from a place of, you can mend this, you can recreate your story. And so I was able to do that. I didn't spend a lot of time doing that, but I needed to know what the triggers were because they were pushing me backwards, right? And so I wanted to break free of that. And that's where this teaching came in. It took a long time. I went through 7 years of education And throughout that whole time, we did timelines, we did these things, we wrote our own eulogy, and that was, you have to find the good things inside of yourself and you have to celebrate them. And when I was in that women's coaching program, I never had a vision. I just lived day to day. It was like, well, what about your future? What do you want? I don't know. I don't care. I tried all those things. I'd had the knight in white shining armor. I had a white picket fence house. None of those things filled me up. Oh, wait, they're all external. They were all external. I was looking for the outside to make my insides feel better. And
Exactly.
once I learned that I was in charge of all this, and I honestly did not like that at all. What do you mean I create my own experience? No, I don't. But, through demonstration after demonstration after demonstration, it's like I started to begin to understand that it was my thinking that was the problem. And what they taught me was how to think. How do you think?
Yeah.
And not what to think, but how to think.
Right.
And the how to think is like you can choose a new thought anytime.
Right.
And if you add that with the fire of feelings,
Mhm.
it can change your life. And it has.
Exactly.
It really has.
Such a beautiful truth that is, like you say, is hard to get that inside of you because we're not programmed like that. And that is such
Right.
a different concept,
Yeah.
but it's
You
such
listen
a,
to the news, you listen to everything like it's like,
yeah,
yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
it's a beautiful concept, right? It's a freeing concept. It actually sets you free, but at first you don't want to hear it because you think you want to blame outside of yourself, for things that happen. You don't think
Yeah.
it's your
Oh, it was all their
responsibility.
fault. Yeah. Oh,
It,
I was good at that.
it
That
really,
was my whole thing. I was a
yeah.
victim.
Yeah, yeah, I totally understand. I think I went through that. I've talked to so many people going through that victim mentality. And once you get through that and realize you're responsible and for your thoughts, you're right, like what you're saying, it can just really change your life. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. It made me gag, want to throw up for a while.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to accept it at first,
No.
right?
Okay, I can take accountability for the good stuff that's happening, but oh no, that was his problem, that was her problem, not my problem.
Right.
But eventually you just kind of, you get enough demonstrations and you begin to monitor your thinking and monitor your experiences and you can say, oh, wow, that is really true. That is true. Wow, I was having a bad day and then I spilt my coffee and then I got a flat tire and then I, ran a red light, blah, blah. You can see that negative thinking. And, there was another one. If it was just like you wake up in the morning and then you start saying, oh, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. Well, what happens? You're tired.
Yeah.
You've just talked yourself into some state of mind. And so there was so many examples of those things.
Yes.
Yeah. And, thankfully, there was this, you know, uh, yeah, so I finished all my training and so I became a minister. I was like, oh my God, me, this crazy alcoholic, got
Yeah.
into a lot of trouble with stuff. And here I was now a minister, an interim minister. And that was quite the experience. I never thought that, but I just loved the teaching so much. It wasn't so much that I wanted to have a ministry,
Right.
but it was just that I wanted to learn, learn, learn. I wanted to learn. I wanted to change my life. I wanted to get this stuff like the law of attraction. What do you mean the law of attraction? What do you mean that the law? What is this law thing, right? And where are the principles? Where are the things that I need to do? Because I was eager and
Yeah.
thirsty to figure this out. And so, and what, I got to say, like the 12 steps totally gave me a foundation on how to live my life. Absolutely a sober life, a life that was worth it. And things were happening in the 12-step program. Absolutely. I would not be here today if I didn't have that foundation. I continued to attend meetings. Continued to be engaged in that whole program in addition to my spiritual program because the two go hand in hand.
Yeah, I was going
And
to ask you about that, how much of an influence, but it sounds like it was the beginning for you. Like you
oh,
really led to
absolutely.
that. Like that was totally spirit leading you to that, to give you
Mhm.
that first insight, of seeking a higher power, seeking
Yeah.
spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And today it is the strong foundation for me. What the Centers for Spiritual Living did and the philosophy did was taught me the tools to access. It helped me take it to the next level because the program, the information in the program was there's nothing wrong with it. It absolutely cured me. Like I'm cured. I don't crave drinks at all. I take very careful inventories of what I'm doing and stuff like that. It taught me a lot of tools,
Yes.
but the Centers for Spiritual Living was about the thinking part. It
Mhm.
was how to change my mind so that I would have a higher quality of life because I was still struggling with the um, emotions. I was still struggling with my emotions. I was, and that's where it helped me clear that part of my thinking side of myself. I was still making not great choices, and it took me all that time to get that designation, and I just wanted more out of life. I wanted more,
Yes.
and so that's why I was led to the coaching program. I was led to the spiritual center. I was led to take the classes. And from there, that launched me into a whole new area, right? I left Kelowna. I didn't mention it before, but my kids, my son, he was very good. He went, he had struggled in school and was a dropout as well. And then he went to extra schooling and started working at banks, and he was enjoying his banking career, so that was actually a good match for him. So
Right.
he was doing well, and he bought himself a condo in Kelowna, and he had his dog, and he was he was relatively happy. And then my daughter, she struggled a lot. She got in heavily into drugs, heroin, crack. Started living on the streets when she was 15. And, it was hard. It was so hard for my second husband and I. It was just painful. It was a long journey of her,
That's
going
your
through.
heart as a mother. I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, she started, acting out at 13, sneaking out of the house, drinking, hanging out with guys that were way older than her. And it was bad. And then 15, she moved out, and then she'd come back occasionally. And, every, I don't know, 6, 8 weeks, she'd come back and she'd just fall asleep and sleep for 48 hours. And then she'd just pack up and walk out of the house with nothing.
Right.
She just with the clothes on her, that's all. And she was just living in this, it was hard. It was the hardest thing. It was the hardest thing that I had to go through, just watching her
Yes.
and knowing, like, trying everything. In fact, we tried so hard. She actually graduated from high school. She was one of the, you know, what?
Yeah.
But they had a special program for them, and so it was a self-directed program. They got into a special classroom. The teacher was a dynamo, and he just, they let them use like all kinds of outside activities, like drive. You took a driver's course to
Yeah.
learn to drive. That was a credit. You got to use
Yeah.
those for credits for school. She went to a teen coaching program down at the YMCA. She was a coach down there,
Mhm.
and she came back, went to a youth camp and all that stuff, and she got credit for that. So
Wow.
there was all these different things that helped her actually make it to the end of her education. So she got to graduate from high school, and she looked like a princess that day. It was great.
Oh.
Yeah, she just looked so beautiful. And yeah, but she met a guy. He was in treatment and, living in a recovery house, and he was 20 years older. And then they just started on their journey together while I'm doing my journey.
Right.
And throughout all that, I mean, I ended up leaving my husband when I turned 50. Was it 50? Yeah, when I turned 50. I was finished. We'd been together on and off for a long time, and it was time to go. And then my mom passed. I was super close with my mother, and she'd had dementia 3 months after I turned 50. So, I turned to my ex for consolation. It's sort of, it was just that we just went back and forth all the time. It was not great. But anyway, so finally I definitely cut it off after a while. But um, and then it was time for me to make a change. I was just being called, like, this is another experience, right? It was like, I'm in Kelowna. I've become a minister. And there was, I don't know, there was like 10 ministers in Kelowna and about 15 or 18 practitioners. So there wasn't really much room in there to do spiritual programs and things like that. And my work was changing. I had been working on my own. Like um, I had my own business. I decided to stop being an employee. And so I'd contract to this one firm. They were like large part of my revenue, but I did have other clients as well and a small tax business. And so, but the large employer, the large contract was changing. And so I was going to have to relocate. I was going to have to find a new office space, and I was going to have to build up a practice. And, I applied for a couple of jobs, but I didn't really want to work for anybody.
Right.
It wasn't my thing anymore. And then my condo came up for lease. All these things conspired on my behalf.
Yeah.
And, so anyways, I was able to rent my condo for a very good price, and I was able to leave the city. I gave away everything I owned except for my kitchen stuff and my bed and my office stuff. And I moved to Calgary, and that was 10 years ago.
Right.
So I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of wanted to start a center for spiritual living in Nanaimo. So why are you going to Calgary, Lesley? Not Nanaimo. Well, I had a really great friend that lived in Calgary, and I just thought it'll be a launching pad. I don't know what I want to do, but it was a good place to start. And I had a few clients that were coming with me. So I had a few clients,
Yeah.
and I went to Nanaimo. I did a road trip to Nanaimo about a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks after I had moved to Calgary. And I got there and I was like, I love Nanaimo. I just want to live on a houseboat with a cat. I don't want to start a spiritual center.
Right.
And there was already a thriving community there. They had a church, they had a lot going on, and they were a beautiful center
Yeah.
already. And Unity is a sister organization to CSL.
Right.
And I just thought, well, that's already existing, and I didn't really want to, do that. It didn't feel it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So I just went back to Calgary and said, well, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm still waiting for the answer. But I knew what I was doing,
Right.
and so after I got back, shortly after that, my daughter's birthday was in October. I went up she was living with her guy up in Edmonton. It wasn't good. They'd had a year's sobriety, but once they moved to Edmonton because, life is better in Edmonton than it was in Kelowna where they were sober. And that didn't really work out for them. They started drinking and drugging again. And so
Yeah.
it was not a good, it was her birthday. So I went to treat her, bought her some clothes, bought them some food, and I stayed in a motel, and we just went and did some things. We went out for supper, that kind of stuff, and for a couple of days. And then I didn't see her again because I got a job position. I got an offer, a 2-week employment opportunity in Vancouver. And so my family, my son and my daughter and I, and my brother, all of us were going to rendezvous in Kelowna for Christmas. So I was working down in Vancouver. The 2 weeks turned into a longer contract. And then right before Christmas, like December, I don't know, it was like December 16th or something like that. Uh, I got fired.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Like, Jesus, I was like 30 plus years sober, and I got fired from a job. Now, to be honest, it was a terrible job. I wasn't doing a good job because it was a crazy business. The guy was he had this huge contract, made a lot of money, but he wasn't paying his remittances. He wasn't doing anything. And, it was just a big mess. And it was so toxic. He was such an angry guy. And he was having relationship issues. His wife was working there and it was really bad. And he wanted me to fix all that. And I was like, I'm just an accountant. I'm not a fixer. Right. And it was like, oh my God, this was terrible. But the day I got fired, that morning, I'd done a spiritual practice. You put in the center of a circle, like a little circle in the middle of the page. I put down thriving spiritual practice,
Yeah.
thriving spiritual practice. And then I did sort of a pinwheel around it of all the things that would encompass. It was like I was in a meditative state and I'm writing, it's people are attracted and it's a thriving practice, so it brings me abundance and it's happy and it's joyful and and it's all those things. I don't know, I can't think now all the
Yeah.
things that I've
Yeah.
done, but I had this sort of circle of all this beautiful things, beauty, peace, serenity, all this stuff on this circle of
Yeah.
actually what I did want instead of going to this,
Yeah.
toxic employment situation. Get in there and at noon, it's like the guy that got me the job, told me about the job, phoned me and said, "You're fired. They're going to take your stuff and you're going to go,
Yeah.
and they're going to take you home, drive you home, and they'll take the truck back that I was using." And I was like, "Oh my God, right? What? I've been fired since I was 18." So,
But looking back, that was meant to be, right? Even though it's
oh yeah, it was
hard on
absolute
our
divine intervention.
yes. Yeah.
Because I'm the stayer. I can stay for a long time under an intolerable situation because you just got to practice your spiritual principles,
Right.
Lesley,
Right.
to make it better, better, better. No, no, no. That was so good. It was so good. So, anyways, I wasn't sure what, I was kind of at my brother's. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm happening and stuff like that. And, anyways, couple days later, we decided to go to the Center for Spiritual Living in White Rock because we were living. I was staying in Surrey. We go down there, and there was no service that morning. I don't know why. There was a note on the board. Oh, we've changed it to the nighttime or whatever. So it was the only time I tried to go to a service while I was down there. But anyways, went back home and my niece was there and she was starting to prepare, like we're going to do a turkey dinner because it was December 20th.
Yeah.
And she said the RCMP came by the house, Lesley, and they wanted to talk to you. And I was like, what? What's going on? Like, how did they even know where to find me? Nobody knew that I was like I had, nobody knew that I was in Vancouver
Oh.
working really,
Yeah.
except the place that I was living at in Calgary,
Mhm.
which was a friend's house. And anyways, they said they'd come back. So sure enough, they came back about 1 o'clock and sit down. Bad news. My daughter had died from an overdose.
Yeah. So
Uh, so
yeah.
horrible.
Just the most painful thing, hey?
Yeah.
As a parent, you know, you all, as a parent, how, that could be just the hardest thing to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And her partner was still alive, but she had passed. And yeah, it was like the
Yeah.
darkest of dark times.
I bet.
Yeah. And so, but I didn't have a job. And so we went to Kelowna for Christmas and did a celebration for her. And lots of people came um, but it was really very difficult. The next year, that following year of 2016, that was 2015, December 20th, 2015. 2016 was really difficult. I didn't really work. I didn't have, I had a few clients and they sort of, that helped a little bit. I had some RSPs. I just used that to survive.
Yeah.
Um, And I tried to, I didn't want to, I didn't want to be alive anymore. I wanted to be dead,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to kill myself. It was just, there wasn't really, didn't feel like there was anything to live for.
Right.
Um, and it was painful. It was really hard. Yeah, it was really incredibly difficult because, people just don't know the pain, and I don't want them to know the pain. But
Well,
we all lose people.
exactly.
That's part of being human. And I just put on the happy face. I put on my face, and I just went out. And sometimes I cried, sometimes I didn't. I relied heavily on the person I was living with, the family that I was living with. They had lost 4 years earlier their own son to cancer. And so I was in the best place possible because they gave me so much grace. They didn't, there was
Right.
nothing.
Right. That was the best place you could have been. And once
Yeah.
you see, spirit like leading your life, right? When you look back on it now, I'm sure
Yeah.
you see,
Yeah,
oh, you,
absolutely.
you were taken care of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so after a year, I went back to Kelowna the following Christmas. And when I was with my friend, we stayed at my friend's house. So my brother came up, my son was there. And she had this little, a nice little house. They had a nice sized house with a little cabin in the backyard in the forest close to the mountains. They were up in the mountains. It was close to a lake,
Right.
so it was really secluded. And I'd known her for years. I watched her have her two children. I was with her in the births of her two children. And I guess, so we'd known each other. I think they were probably about 10 or 11 at that point, and really adorable. And so we had the Christmas together, and her and I went out for a walk in the forest, and we were crossing a field, snow-covered field. It was because there were a lot of snow there.
Yeah.
And I weighed a lot more than I do now. I was like 320 pounds, and I'm walking through the forest, and I fall down in the snow in the field. I fall down in the snow, and I tried to get back up, and I couldn't get up. I was so defeated. I just, like, it was that moment of incredible despair. And I just seen a sign in the forest that said Jesse Road, and it was like, that was my daughter's name, Jessie. And I was like, so I completely surrendered, lying in the snow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get up, and I didn't know anymore how to live. I just didn't.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this hand reaches out, and to pull me up. And it was one of those incredible moments. Like, I knew in that instant
Yeah.
that it was going to be okay, that it was all right. And it was my friend's hand. Of course, it wasn't,
You did,
like
you
a
felt
ghost or
something,
something,
right? It
but
was,
it was the feeling of that complete, I'm going to be okay again, like lifting it up.
yeah.
And that, I just was filled with such gratitude that I was able to be the mother to that girl. She was 27, and I was able to be the mother to that girl. And it was a gift. She was a gift to my life. And that I would be okay, and I still had my son.
Yeah.
And so I listed my apartment for sale. And Patrick decided to come to Kelowna, from Kelowna, to live with me in Calgary. So we got a house where he could have his own space. I had my own space. The woman that I was living with, she decided to divorce her husband at that time. While I was in Kelowna having an amazing spiritual experience, she was having an amazing transformation. Like, I told him, I'm leaving him.
Yeah.
And so she moved in with her kid, who was at SAIT and getting her higher education. She didn't live with us very long, only about 6 months, and then she moved on and started her career. So, and then I really engaged in creating an incredible life for myself here in Calgary. Calgary is the best place I could have been,
Yeah.
really, truly, honestly, because I was able to create my accounting firm.
Yes.
I met an amazing man through a business networking program, and I was like really suspicious. It's like, well, I got this deal for you.
Yeah.
You help me get my hours to become so I can go into public practice,
Yeah.
and I'll pay you to review my files. And I'm like, wow, this sounds very easy. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was getting paid from him to review his files, and he was getting the work, he was building his own practice. And then after about doing that for about 18 months, we realized that we really enjoyed working with each other. And then, hey, why don't we just get into business together?
Yeah.
And so we were able to do that. And holy cow, it was just amazing. And we started together, we found an office space with another guy in another business, and we started out, it was July 2019. And then, of course, July 2019, you know what happened in March? 9 months later, the old COVID happened, but we
Right.
managed to thrive through that because our business wasn't shut down. And we went through growing pains and stuff like that. We got rid of the other business because it wasn't serving us. And I learned a lot of lessons, but at the same time, I focused. I was doing a lot of stuff in Calgary with the at the spiritual center, teaching classes, giving the occasional Sunday talk. And there's a fantastic community there. They were so supportive,
Yeah.
and I just focused on growing my business. I had a vision. I had a vision. I had a vision, and I just kept using that vision. I knew how to vision now. I knew how to live my life as if it had already happened.
Yeah.
And through that, I was able to grow this practice. In 2017, when I kind of came out of my stupor, my income for 2017 was $4,000.
Right.
And we just sold the practice in 17. So it's 8 years, in the 8 years that we did that, right? Well, no, it was incorporated from 19, 6 years when we did that. I
Yeah.
was able to sell the business for $500,000.
That's amazing. That is
Yeah,
so,
no kidding.
what a
Like,
transformation.
hello.
Hey, Leslie, from what you've come through, and just beautiful. Hey, just such a transformation
Yeah.
in your
So
life.
I got half of that, and now I have enough to fund my retirement and to fund the next beautiful, status. I have a new status. I'm level AAA, which is advisory, art, and author. I have a book that I started on quite a few years ago about my experience with my daughter.
Right.
And I just put it aside because it was so hard. But, I didn't, when I thought to publish it, she was still alive, but there's a whole new chapter now. So, but it's about helping parents. You have to let go we have to let go, and we have to figure out a way that makes sense for us to let go. And so I wanted to share that journey of mine. And so I hope to publish, well, not hope, the
Yeah.
book's published.
Yeah. You'll
It's
continue.
already
Yeah.
done.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I think that that can really help others. And I'm sure, like, even if there was someone, a listener, that would be able to reach out to you, maybe, I know you do,
Yes.
and because sometimes you need someone who's gone through it before, and just right, that has come through
Mhm.
it and has that message of hope, and that you can get through it. So
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
a beautiful help to other people.
Yeah. And yeah, so it'll be 10 years this Christmas
Mhm.
that she's been gone.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'm thriving. I've released 100 and I don't know, 50 pounds. I'm the lightest I've been since for 40 years. And I'm stronger than physically stronger than I've ever been. I had a vision for my health. I had a vision for my business. I had a vision for my life. I have a beautiful home that I live in, and it just continues to thrive and get better and better and better. I use the spiritual principles
Mhm.
of the 12-step program and Centers for Spiritual Living to transform my life.
Yeah.
And today I have time, money, freedom, and it's just amazing. And I meet people like the amazing Shelley Baker.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? It's
I,
like, yeah, but we're,
well,
it's like there's all
you
these
were
people
my
that are
you were my
building our lives.
Yeah, you were my teacher, because I took the foundations
Yeah.
to take the Dr. Ernest Holmes Science of Mind, which is a beautiful, like, I got so much out of that too. Such a beautiful, and you see that people, there's lots of teachers, there's lots of spiritual teachers out there, but it doesn't really matter who, right? And sometimes you follow many spiritual teachers, but somehow you're directed to something that really, like you say, transformed your life, like
Yes.
absolutely transformed it, right? Because
Yeah.
you begin to understand about how you create your own world and your own life and your thoughts and all of that. So it doesn't really matter where it comes from, but it's I feel like
No, it doesn't.
spirit leads you to something. And for me too,
Hmm.
I love reading. So I've read many books and many, from many spiritual teachers, and it is life
Yeah.
transforming. I mean, you start to really change the way you view everything,
Hmm.
yourself and your creator and the world. And you just start to see how it all fits, how we're all connected. It's such a beautiful thing. And I feel like so many people are waking up, and like for yourself, you didn't even have a background in spirituality or God. And just look at the times that you shared. It just makes me feel emotional where he came to you just
Hmm.
to show you that he loved you. And you had
Yeah.
that overwhelming feeling, right? And
Yeah.
so beautiful, even through all of the darkness and the hard things that you went through, he was there helping you,
Hmm.
right? Or spirit was there.
Yeah.
I don't want to say he, she. Spirit was there trying to say, I love you. It doesn't matter. You're perfect. I love you, right?
Hmm.
Such a beautiful message that we need to, get out to the world, I feel, that we are perfectly loved and we are perfect.
Yeah.
Our soul inside is that perfect light, right? And
Yeah.
lots of things can cover that over, I know, but so your story is just such a beautiful example of that. Like, I just love it.
Hmm.
And you're so real. And thank you for being so transparent about what
Hmm.
you've gone through. And I feel like, any listeners could really, you know, I appreciate transparency, and I think that's what changes people is they say, "Wow, look at what they went through and they made it through, and look how,
Yeah.
they sought, God, spirit, creator, whatever you want to say. It's all the same thing, but that's what really, made you realize your worth and who you are, right?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. And it comes through so many things, like just that gratitude practice, monitoring your thoughts, noticing what you're thinking, noticing and what you're noticing, and spending time and doing those things. And, it's a constant commitment. Some people say you have to be vigilant. It's true.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I slack off. Like things happen,
Or
and
we all do.
but what happens is, like, here's a good example. You know, when I was with my first husband, I didn't. He made a bad. He made a crack about his shirts not being
Yeah.
ironed. It was so
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah.
Women still
Yeah.
ironed their
Yeah.
husband's shirts,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he made a crack about it, and I didn't talk. Literally did not speak to him for 2 weeks. Like, that's how long it took me to get over that, right? It was like, that's such, and I was sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, I'm still in a 12-step program that says, like, take care of your, same similar ideas. Anyways, now, when my son went away, he lives in Mexico for half the year and half a year up in Canada. And so the first year he went down there, he came back, he brought back a husband, like, and didn't tell me that
Yours,
he was getting married. I'd met him on Zoom, but he came back without a husband, with a husband. And I
right.
was like, I was crushed, like, crushed, man. It was like, we're the first, you're my number one.
Yeah.
And, but I got over it in like 48 hours, like, completely over it. Like, I had to process it, but,
Yeah.
he didn't betray me. Nothing happened. He was like, he just wanted me to get to know him in person before, meet him first before he told me, because meant so much to him.
Right.
Of
Right.
course it would. Like,
Yeah.
and so but that's the thing. Like, I still have reactions and respond, but I've learned to respond as
Yeah.
well,
Exactly.
and what's more important, the love of my son or being right? Oh, yeah, I'll take my son any day.
Yeah. And seeing it from a different perspective, like you said,
And
see
now I
from
have two
his
sons.
right.
I got
Yeah.
two kids
Exactly.
again. It's awesome. And he's a
Yes.
beautiful person. And yeah, so, and that's the whole point,
Yeah.
is that life is not betraying me. It's
Yeah.
not. It's
That's
not. It's there 100% on my, you know, it's 100% for me.
yeah.
Things always work out. Things
Yeah.
always work out. They
Yeah.
always do.
That's beautiful, Lesley.
Mm.
Yes, well, thank you so much for sharing. And I was just, is there anything you'd like to say to the listener that you could encourage them, especially if they're going through a really hard time, like you've been through some really difficult things? Like, is there something you would want to leave with them?
Mm. Life is good, and we need to look for the good every day and every moment, whether it's a little flower growing out of a crack in the sidewalk to a beautiful day or the birds or whatever it is. Just find that one thing that will help you move up to your emotional scale from the despair into the next phase. And spirit, God, life speaks to us through books, through music, through people, through experiences. Like there's always something that we can find that will help us in our mood to move ourselves up, no
Beautiful,
matter what.
beautiful.
And just it's that whole thing of be gentle with ourselves.
Mhm.
We can't, nobody can give it you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So
Exactly.
I couldn't get my daughter sober. It's we tried. Nothing would get her sober. She had to make that decision. And I had to make the decision to stop making her my life.
Great.
I had to get on with my own life. And that was the biggest gift that I taught myself while we were going through that. And it was the biggest gift. I had to figure it out how to show up every day after she left this, the body. And I had to figure out how to show up and be myself again and again and again. And that's what it is. It's like, I'm not my trauma. I am the truth of God. I am light. I am love. I am power. I'm harmony. I'm joy. Those are the things that are true about me.
Yes.
All those other things weren't the truth. Those were lies I told myself. I don't want to lie to myself anymore. And I don't want to terrorize myself with my thinking, as Hayes says.
Yes. I
Stop
love
that.
Louise Hay too. She's passed on, but man, does she have beautiful teachings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I heard that terrorizing myself with my thinking, it was like, yeah, I'm doing that. And
Yes.
it's not a do it alone program either. We need community.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about what you're doing, Shelley, is
Oh,
you're creating community for people. So
right.
thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I just feel like that it can really help other people hearing different ones' stories, right? Because we all go through things, and sometimes we don't know
Oh
what
yeah.
someone else has gone through, and to hear their story and how they've made it through, it's just a beautiful, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like there is such a an awakening now in the world, and it just
Yes.
as you had those beautiful experiences when you didn't even really know anything about God, just you start realizing I'm loved, I'm being taken care of, right? And that's
Hmm.
such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I don't know where I heard it, but I'm in the heart of God and God is in the heart of me.
Ah, beautiful, Lesley. Very
Hmm.
beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I just wanted to put it out there that you still do consulting, which we mentioned before, for CPAs and bookkeepers. So, Lesley, do you want to give, if anybody's interested in that, that you could help them? You've had a very successful business, and you
Yeah.
still want to help others with
Yeah.
their things. Um,
And I also do spiritual coaching as well. So,
oh, that's
yeah,
amazing.
spiritual
Yeah.
coaching and also advisory services to accountants and bookkeepers.
Yeah.
It's my business is Salty Dogs Consulting.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay. Oh, cool. That's cute.
because it's me and I'm still working with my business partner, but we had a holding company.
Okay.
And look at me owning two businesses. I
Oh,
actually owned four businesses at one point. So, anyways,
that's
but
amazing. That's
yeah, who knew?
yeah, yeah,
It's like that's what happens when you just like turn it over and start letting
yeah,
spirit work for you. I work for spirit, and yeah, life got really amazing.
yeah, such transformation. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much. So, we'll leave it at that. And if anybody
yeah,
wants to contact Lesley, she'd be more than happy to hear from you. So, thank
yeah,
you so
exactly.
much, Lesley.
My pleasure.
Right.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah. Bye-bye. I hope you've enjoyed listening to our guest's story of their spiritual journey today. If somehow it's helped you or resonated with you, please do leave a comment below. Maybe you're going through your own time of and spiritual journey, so maybe it's helped you in some way. Also, please like and subscribe to this channel so you'll be sure to get more and hear more of these spiritual journeys. Thank you very much for being with us today.